How's it, guys? So I've been kind of busy lately. Haven't been able to get out and visit any farms looking at new herds. But having said that, we've had a lot of rain recently. It was we went through a drought. We had some good rains. And most of the farmers are currently busy tending to their crops. They're busy spraying for weeds, pesticides, things like that. So it's not exactly the best time either. Having said that, I have made contact with a Senepal stud breeder. He's only available on Saturdays. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to get out to him this Saturday, that both of us will be available, and that I can bring you guys some good content. But before I continue, let me first start out with today's shoutouts. Today's shoutouts go to Dennis G4053, Bunabile Mixed Farming, Humphrey Himwaba, Tabo George Munaledi, Sporo 99, Pumlani Shongwe Bengza, Tulani James Malinga, Abkul Orto, Johannes KL88, Alexander Z8E1P, that's a mouthful, Chinenga Mwimba, James Gray 89, Itumeleng 8970, and Mujalifa Tselana. Guys, thank you so much for your comments. I enjoy interacting with you guys. And I've noticed that there's a lot of people commenting from outside our borders, international commenters. So welcome to the channel. If you don't know by now, I have a small, humble herd. I'm passionate about cattle, and I enjoy sharing my thoughts, my processes, and my revelations with you guys. So welcome to the channel. Anyway, without further ado. So the topic or the title of this video is why you should visit your animals at night. And I'm going to get back to that shortly. There's a couple of observations I want to share with you today, things that I've noticed lately. But let me first start off by saying that I've combined my two breeding herds. And the reason I did that was because about a week ago I was here at night. Many of you know I'm here very often at night. We have a theft problem. And because of the theft problem, I'm often here to check up on the animals. And when I was here, I noticed, or I found Fred with two heifers. Now, the two heifers were in decent heat. They were so hot, they were glowing. And yet Fred was only paying attention to one of them. Now, because I have a short breeding season, and it's only 45 days, and it's a recommendation that Johan Zitzman makes that I'm following, I don't want any animals to miss out or not be bred simply because the bull was too busy with another cow or another heifer. So I decided to join the two herds together. The first 21 days they were separate, two herds, two bulls, and I've pretty much tracked their heats as we've gone along. So the specific combinations I wanted, I think, have happened, hopefully successfully. But should I have any doubt going forward, I can always just do DNA tests on the calves to determine which bull is in fact the father. So I've put them together. At the same time, I've also put them into this camp. Now, the grass in this camp is predominantly bullgrass and ngongoni. It's, generally speaking, not a very good quality. It's a low octane, fairly unpalatable grass. So cattle don't graze it unless you force them. And this is the bullgrass down here, as you can see. So I've put them into this camp. I want them to whack it a little bit, graze it short. I want to get the maximum value out of this grazing, so that starting next season, hopefully, the grass will start off and grow out better, and we might get more palatable grasses. So I'm pushing them a little bit hard. I'm putting them all in here, and this camp is 12 hectares as we speak. So I have a couple of observations, as I said, that I want to share with you, and I'm going to start off with this heifer over here. When I put these animals into this camp, the one herd had been grazing selectively in our bigger camp. And grazing selectively is nice. They can cherry pick all the good succulent grasses that they want. The downside to that is you never get to see which animals are less adapted. She seems to be coming on heat again. So I put them into this camp, and lo and behold, this heifer over here immediately showed that she's not very good on the less palatable grasses. I immediately saw within 2 days that she'd lost gut capacity. She wasn't grazing as well as she should. She has since improved, but I could see she didn't have good gut fill, and she lost a little bit in condition, and she's not sick. I've made double sure. So I already know that should she not be bred successfully, and she was on heat and she was bred, should she not give me a calf in December, I already know that this is one of the heifers that would need to go, because she's just simply not suited to the type of grazing that we have in this farm. Ironically and interestingly enough, she's one of the largest framed Cimbras, but she's probably also the most masculine of all the heifers and the most coarsely built. If you have a look at her back legs there, just look how thick and stocky those legs are. She's got these thick soup bone legs. So that's an observation I've made recently, and I think things like these are important to pick up. It's not just, you shouldn't just wait until your animals calve and then wonder why they did or didn't calve. It's good to know up front what their limits or their limitations are. The second observation I made is, because I put them in this camp, because we're a country that's known for being fairly low in phosphorus and phosphor and things like that, phosphates at least, in our grazing, I put out a phosphate lick to assist these animals. And it was based also on the fact that I watched a YouTube video about trials done in Australia. Okay, there's another heifer that's repeating, it seems. Trials done in Australia where they took 2 herds and they tracked them for 5 years, and the one herd received phosphate or phosphorus all the way through, and the other herd didn't, and what the effects were. So as I said, I know our grazing's generally in this country has a shortage of that, so I opted to put out a bag of superphos. And the interesting part is, when I put the bag out, obviously all the animals came and inspected and were interested to see what I was doing, but none of the Ngoonies and none of the Thulees touched the lick. They just gave it a sniff. I think one of them licked half-heartedly and they moved on. Whereas the Cimbras, on the other hand, when they got to the lick, they all showed interest and they started consuming it quite aggressively. Now, I don't know if the Cimbras have a bigger shortage than what the Ngoonies have. I'm not quite sure what to make of this, but it just goes to show you don't always know what your animal's short, and not all animals have the same requirements when it comes to licks and things like that. So that was my second observation. Very interesting. My third observation, and I just need to find out where she's at. There she is. Just hang on, I'm just going to walk over to a cow over there. And here we are. So my third observation revolves around this cow. I noticed last Monday she had an eye infection. I wasn't able to attend to her immediately. So she had to walk around like that for a day or two. Wednesday I brought them in so that I could treat her. And that was also, incidentally, the day that I combined the 2 herds. I brought them in and I saw, but this cow had 20 grey ticks in the folds between her back legs, just behind her udder. Now, most of you know I don't treat my animals for ticks. I don't dip them. So I'm forever taking note of what their tick load looks like. And the logical conclusion that I drew from this, I brought her in, I treated the eye, I didn't do anything about the ticks. And 2 days later, the ticks were gone. So my logical conclusion was, something as small as an eye infection could affect her immunity enough that she suddenly started carrying a lot of ticks. It's a small thing, it's a stupid thing maybe, but I think it's very important. Because at the end of the day, if something like an eye infection can affect her so much that she suddenly carries a lot more ticks, and as we're walking here, I'm having a look at her and I think she's got about 2 or 3 ticks on her that I can see, which is pretty much normal for her. But if something as small as an eye infection can affect her, just imagine how that would affect breeds that are less hardy, less adapted, and not as tough. It also means that if you're consistently watching your animals and you know you're observing them and you know what they should look like, and you suddenly see an animal with more ticks, even though she might be healthy or look healthy at least, even though she might look healthy, it's worth taking a second look, because it means that there's something that's just not right with her. So to me, it's a tool. It's something that I feel is quite important. I would never have thought a simple eye infection could have such a big effect on the health of your animal. And I mention this because I drive past many herds. Sometimes I stop along the road and I look at them over the fence, and it's surprising how many herds you'll see with untreated eye infections. And if it can affect her, excuse me, if it can affect her immunity, could it not also affect her ability to conceive? I don't know. So often we might lose good animals just because they have something as stupid as an eye infection. Now, coming to why it's a good idea to visit your animals at night. I'm here because I have to be here at times. Most farmers don't do this. However, I've found that there's a lot that I see at night that you ordinarily wouldn't see during the daytime. For example, most of the heats that I've observed have been at night. Now, I'm often here in the late afternoon and then maybe later on that evening, 8, 9, 10 p.m. So very often I see animals at night that are on heat that I didn't see during the day. That's the first thing. Secondly, something very interesting, this camp, as I said, is 12 hectares. It's predominantly bullgrass and some ngongoni, but there are some broadleaves. There are some succulent broadleaves in between. And because I put them on this nasty grass, I've been really paying attention to what they're grazing. And I picked up something very interesting. At night, the cattle tend to graze the nasty grasses, the bull grasses and the things like that. And during the day, if it's overcast, they'll graze the nasty grasses. However, if it's a bright sunny day, they then look out for the succulent broadleaves. Now, I'm not quite sure what to make of that information. I just want to quickly show you. But there's a lot of grass here. We were blessed with the rain. I'm not quite sure what to make of that information, but my logical conclusion is it must have something to do with the brix values. When the sun is shining and it's up high, the sweet grasses have way more sugar, and the difference in palatability between your sweet and your broadleaves and your bull grasses is way bigger, so they look for the good stuff. At night, when there's no sun shining, the palatability differences are not as great, and then they graze less selectively. That's all I can conclude. But it also tells me that if you go through a week of rain and overcast and whatnot, it might be a better time to graze your nasty grasses, because the cows will more readily consume them than trying to put them in here in the middle of December when it's a heat wave, because you're going to get a lot more selective grazing. Anyway, as I said, not quite sure what to make of that. Maybe you guys have some ideas or thoughts that you can share with me. The next thing I also picked up, and by the way, before I forget to mention, the Grazer Track GPS collars I've been able to use not only to track the animals and for their security, but The app has a function where you can actually log in and you can draw a record if you want of the last hour, 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, and it pinpoints all the spots where the animals have been grazing. So it gives you all the locations, and it depends on your settings, whether you every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, every hour, it doesn't matter. But it shows you where the animals have been grazing. And because I know this camp and I know where the bad grasses are, I was actually able to confirm that in fact at night they tend to graze the nasty grasses more than the good grasses. So I nearly forgot about that point. The last thing I want to share, and this I also picked up at night, as I said, when I'm here after hours, typically from 9 to 11, maybe 11:30 p.m., my cows usually spend the time resting, chewing the cud. And when they get up, the first thing they do is they urinate and they defecate. And when they did that the night before last, I took note, and I was able to see, based on the consistency of their poop, like this cow over here, which cows are better suited or better adapted to this nasty grass and which cows are not. Because if it's nice and sloppy like that Thule just showed us, and I just want to show you guys, that's what you want it to look like. That's what you're looking for. If it's nice and sloppy like that, it means that she's properly and efficiently digesting the grass. Just for the record, guys, I've said it before, these Thules are like vacuum cleaners. They just come in and suck up. They eat everything in their path. Not at all selective. They machines, they monsters. I tell you, they're such good grazers, it's just not funny. Anyway, so I saw some of the animals, and it's the Simras that I'm referring to. Some of them, their poops are starting to stack up, which means they're less able to properly or efficiently digest this grass. Now, you might say, why is that relevant? That's something that happens in the winter when the grasses are dead and the protein levels are low. So if animals are not able to properly digest this green grass, they're going to take a bit of strain in the winter. So I've made a couple of notes. I know which animals they are. I'll be keeping an eye on them. But at the end of the day, it's all just added information that I can use going forward when I'm busy in my decision making and selection process. Anyway, so guys, that's a couple of things. Come out at night. You're bound to see things you don't see during the day, different behaviors. It's very interesting. I'm not saying come out every night. You don't need to be paranoid like I am. But it's a good time to check your animals. It's a good time to see things that you ordinarily wouldn't see. Guys, I see that I'm starting to run a little bit long into this video. So I'm going to cut it short. I think it's time to wrap it up. It's too late to cut it short, I suppose. Just one thing I want to add before I go, for those who might still be watching, on the off chance that there's one or two. That heifer over there is a Senepal Thule cross. Guys, she's absolutely stunning. I didn't breed her. There's her mother over there. Am I right? No, sorry. There's her mother over there. I didn't breed her. I bought her as a pregnant 10-year-old cow. But she's the reason I want to go and see the Senepal breeders. Because for those of you who want to produce weaner calves for the feedlot, man, that's quality. I wish I could claim the fame for the breeding, but I can't. But she's really a beautiful, beautiful, top-class weaner heifer. Anyway, guys, that's it for today. Hopefully I can get out on Saturday and go and visit another 1 or 2 farms and bring you guys some interesting content. I'm looking forward to seeing the Senepal breeder. I'm looking forward to getting out to the Afrikaner farm. And then, of course, there's still the Baran cross farm that I want to see as well. So let's see what happens. But in the meantime, you guys must have a good one. Stay safe, and we'll chat again. Cheers.